Today's tinkering is accompanied by Witching Hour Dark Pumpkin Ale from Torque Brewing in Winnipeg. This is one of their seasonal beers, although not from the current season, from the most recently past season. They describe it as having aromas of roasted malt and baking spices with a taste of chocolate, cinnamon, and pumpkin. That's an unexpected combination. So today's messing around was inspired by this collection of ornament ball things that I picked up at a yard sale in the summer for the princely sum of one whole Canadian dollar. Not quite sure what craft store they came from, but originally they would have been $30 Canadian, which is wild that a bunch of plastic spheres cost that much. But anyway, let's grab a few of these and see if we can do some sort of a holiday lighting project with this. Now, I've already been experimenting with some of them before I started recording, trying to make them translucent rather than transparent, and those experiments so far have not turned out all that great. This one I sprayed some clear matting spray into, specifically this one, a clear spray lacquer with a matte finish to it. But as you can see, it landed all splotchy like, and when I sprayed it in there, I just missed it a little bit in, and it just immediately puddled up rather than coating it. So I tried rolling it around for about half an hour while it was drying, and yeah, that didn't turn out very well. So my next experiment was pouring some acrylic craft paint, just basic white acrylic craft paint from the dollar store in, and again, rolling it around as it was drying. I just sort of did this idly for almost an hour while I was watching Big Clive and various other YouTube channels that I tend to watch. And the end result was also far less than ideal. It's an interesting look, but definitely not holiday decorating spec. So I'm going to set those aside for now and maybe return to those experiments off camera. I don't know if you guys know of anything that would be good to coat the inside of these and give a sort of a translucent appearance. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, my plan for these things is to remove the caps and replace them with something that will let me get some wires in and out of it, and then stuff some LEDs into it. And I've got a few different ideas. This package is just another dollar store purchase. It was 120 LEDs for I think $4 plus tax and whatnot. You can get different packages of this kind of little LEDs on wires. Here's another one from the same source. We've seen these little LED pixels in blobs of epoxy on wire before, but while that one was 30 for I think $3, this one was 120 LEDs for less than $5, and I'm hoping that I can make this do something interesting. I'm not planning on using these with their little controller and whatnot, but let's just see what it does anyway. So it looks like they all just light up individually, and I guess that's all well and good, but I'm thinking that I'm going to just cut these off. They are 6 strands of 20 LEDs each to be 120, so I think I'm just going to maybe put 10 LEDs into one of these and see what happens. Let me just disentangle one of these strings off of the major batch here. Okay, so there's 10 of them stuffed in there, and that actually looks pretty cool, I think. So maybe that will be one of my first experiments to see what sort of approval I can get on these. I haven't mentioned it yet, but part of the reason for my experimenting tonight is to come up with a variety of options that I can run by the aesthetics and decorating department's approval process, and we'll see if it's something that I can get away with putting elsewhere in the house. The other thing that we need to do is to figure out what sort of voltage and current to give this thing. I think, unless I'm going to use all the same lights, which is unlikely, I think I am going to use 5 volts just to run around the string of these things, however many I end up making. And for that, I'm going to have to probably current limit these guys. I'll just adjust my current limit until I get kind of a brightness that I like, and that's not too bad. So that's 20 milliamps, and that's 3 volts. So using my handy dandy cheat sheet, I want ohms, I have voltage, and I have current. So I want to drop 2 volts divided by 0.02, which is 20 milliamps, equals, I need a 100 ohm resistor. I didn't promise you that there'd be no math, but that's not that difficult, is it? Especially with the cheat sheet. So 100 ohm resistor. That ought to do it. I'll just quickly insulate that solder joint and that loose wire there with some UV glue, or UV, some clear UV resin, so that won't be too obvious. I suppose I could use some black heat shrink or something on this, but since I'm trying to get this approved for aesthetic reasons, I think I will try and keep it a little bit less duct tape and black heat shrink than I normally would. Right, so now with the power supply set to 5 volts, this should, there we go. And the current is holding at about 15 milliamps, which is perfectly acceptable. I think that's giving a nice sort of warm white glow. And they're not ridiculously bright, so they're not going to burn out. That's good. So you remember at the beginning I said I was going to replace these with something 3D printed. Well, here is the results of that. I did a few experiments, and I used different colors each time I changed the size and kept some notes. So those didn't fit, but these ones, the 4th iteration, did. And as you can see, there's a bit of room up inside there to hide the resistor or any other electronics that I might need to put in here to control any of the other versions that I want to try. So I think that's going to look good. I'm not going to snap it on right now, though. I think you can see the profile of that little barb there. Once I've snapped this on, it's not coming off in one piece. I mean, they cost pennies worth of filament to create, but I don't want to deal with that right now. Let's get some wire to string between these units, and we'll finish this one up, and then we'll go on to experiment with a few other versions. There are plenty of options for wire available. I don't know that I want to use ribbon. What is that? This telephone wire? No, probably not that. Microphone cable? No. Maybe this guy? 3 wires? Yeah, I have some ideas, but I think this will be a good place to start. So I think I will put, 20 centimeters between them, or 30, maybe 30 centimeters between each of the lights in this display. I don't know, is there a standard for such things? I think it's just whatever you want it to be, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is designate on this 3-wire. First of all, yes, I could just use 2 wires for that, but I have some other ideas that involve addressable LEDs, so I want the control wire. But I think for this I will use red as the positive and white as the negative, and the green or gray or whatever you want to call that as the control wire for the smart LEDs when and if we get to that point. And I know I said I wasn't going to use heat shrink, but that was before I realized that I could hide my sins up underneath the little 3D printed cap. So that has opened up my options quite a bit here. Okay, let's thread this on, and hopefully that will hide all my wiring sins in there. And then snap that guy down. Oh, it's tight. Okay, that piece is too weak. Noted for future 3D printing. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to have to modify that. Some of these had a thicker piece on it, and I may have to put some fillets on the bottom of it. And I may also have to put a drop or two of hot melt in there just to hold it. But I think that's a good proof of concept for the mechanical stuff. I'm not going to reprint these right now. You may or may not be able to hear the printer running in the background. It's doing like a 6-hour print. So when that's done, I will adjust these and remodel them. But in the meantime, let's experiment with some different lights. Because I've got plenty of these things to go around. I think I'm going to do 4 or 5 different types just to experiment, and we'll see what passes muster. Right, I've been doing a bit of messing around off screen, and I've got a few other options here. This is just a generic addressable LED controller. I've got a bunch of different things going on this breadboard here. Let me show you. And don't worry about the pattern right now, but let me just show you what I've got here. So this is just a standard 5050 WS2812 LED on a little carrier board. They often come like this, and you just break them off and string them together however you want. But in this case, I've just got it dangling on wires. And if you do that, it kind of lights up the inside of it. Although that does work better when you've got a frosted inside, which is why I was experimenting with that at the beginning. And again, let me know if you got any good ideas to do a better job of that. Another thing I was experimenting with is a much, much smaller LED, which is also a WS2812, just instead of being in a 50/50 package like this, it's in a 20/20 package. There's what they look like on their own. They are super duper tiny. My first experiment with one of those is to try and dead bug it onto some wires here, but that didn't work, and I'm not sure why. As far as I can tell, the wires are all connected. And I did put a drop of that clear epoxy on top of these as well, just to insulate them and give them a bit of mechanical rigidity. But that one took over half an hour, and it didn't work. So my next experiment was, as I showed you down here, to just put it onto a piece of perf board. And that does work, and it does fit inside there if we wanted to do that. And again, it definitely lights it up, and with proper frosting I don't think you'd be able to see the individual LED. So that's another option. Down here on the board I have a couple of WS2811 chips, which are basically the brains inside one of these WS2812s, just broken out, so you can connect them to 3 LEDs or 3 colors. And in this case, I've just got a generic RGB LED. And again, that works. So maybe. But this one, I've got connected up to 3 separate LED filaments. In this case, they're all the same color. But if they were separate RGB, actually, let's put that in the clear one. And maybe try and hang on here. Maybe if I had longer wires on those, I could spread them out and make them look sort of artistic and filamenty. I don't know. It's a thought anyway. So that is some of the things that I've been experimenting with. Obviously, I wouldn't want to use that ridiculous blinky pattern for holiday decorating. Maybe something a little bit more calm and homebrew like this, and then you can make it do exactly whatever you want. That's not a bad idea. Anyway, let's see what else we can find in the stash of things. My bench is getting crowded, but let's bring in the big tub of LEDs. And these might be interesting. We'll pull those out. Here's some more of those kind of wires, so we'll try those. What else do we have in here that might fit? These narrow strips would fit through the top of it, but I don't think they would look that artistic, so we'll just leave those alone. I don't know, is there anything else in here that might work? The LED neon, I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's about all that's in here that might work, but we do have other options. Let's see what this does. These are also NeoPixels or WS2812, if you prefer to be generic. Where is the transparent one of these? Let's shove a handful of these guys in and see what that looks like. I mean, we can do a single LED any of these different ways, but I want to see what a mass of them looks like, because I've seen decorating items for sale in stores that have just, you know, a mass of LEDs on a string shoved into something. That's kind of interesting. Although, again, I don't think that will fly with the decorating department. But maybe if I put those into a frosted one. I wish you could just buy these frosted. Any place that I've looked in stores, I've only been able to find the clear ones, which are normally not a bad idea. Yeah, that's kind of nifty. Can't really see where the spots are coming from. They're just there. Okay, that's another option. What was this other thing here? This is a USB string. I think it's the same as these ones, but let's just plug that in. Oh, no. They're multicolored. Okay. So that could be another option. Let's just shove, say, another 10 of these into here and see what the multicolored version looks like. So far, that's the best that I've found for the clear ones, but I don't know. We'll see what happens when I do a bunch of these. So that's not bad if I shade it from the workbench lights. That's kind of neat. Think about that as two different ones. That's not bad. I wish I had more of these, or I could come up with more of the RGB ones quickly, because this 5-volt string came from AliExpress. Although, again, it's several meters, so I could get a few of these out of the deal. Definitely an option. I think I'm going to hang on to that option. Put it back there. This, I think, is a little bit too vicious unless I can frost more of these things. Let's see what else I can come up with. How about these flame LEDs that I got some time ago? I wonder what they would look like inside one of these. That might be interesting. Let me wire that one up and see what happens. All right, let's see how this looks alongside of the other two that I've got so far. It's a little bit brighter. Maybe I can put a bigger resistor in there, but that's definitely an option. I think I'm going to hang on to that one too. I have a silly idea. A couple of years ago, I did this LED light bulb kit, but I put some of the flashing LEDs in it. I wonder what would happen if I put a whole cluster of them in there, kind of sculptural. Although to get them to spread out, I think it would be a bit of a building a ship in a bottle kind of a thing, but I think I'm going to try that. And again, that's going to be more off-camera soldering, because I think it's going to take quite a bit of time. But I'll come back to you in a few minutes. Stand by. All right, let's see if this abomination works. Oh, cool. It lights up. And since they're independent of each other, they should change at a slightly different speed, because their internal oscillators are all going to be just marginally different. So that is a kind of a cool effect. Now, let's see if I can get that inside one of these without destroying it. Well, after all that faffing around, let's see if it actually works. Hey! That's not too bad. So, let's arrange these so we can see them all, and I'll turn off the light so get rid of the glare, and we'll see if any of these look reasonable enough to take upstairs to the decorating department. So here's our 4 candidates. I decided not to bother with all the WS2812 stuff after all. Maybe it'll make a comeback, I don't know. But anyway, here is the first one. That is just the cheap dollar store warm white LEDs, about 10 of them, I guess, in there. That's not bad. I don't mind that. Then there is the colored LEDs, same form factor, just tiny. Those, I don't mind that either. I think that might be a popular choice. Then we got this flame-shaped flickering flame one. That is kind of cool, but if it's hanging upside down like one of these bulbs is designed to do, that'll be flaming the wrong direction, so maybe not for this application. And then there is the RGB color changing ones set up as a branch, or a branching kind of a thing. That's a neat effect. I like it. I don't know if that will be super popular. There it is just on its own. It's pretty blown out under this lighting conditions, but in real life it's much more subtle. And I don't mind that, but I'm not certain that that will be popular with the rest of the household. Plus, that struggle that you saw just a few seconds of, that took me almost half an hour to try and get them fiddled around using dental tools and bamboo skewers and my little pokey finger. I wouldn't want to put any more in there, but it is a neat effect. And it's entirely possible that none of them are going to pass muster, and I've just wasted my time except for showing you guys some possibilities should you happen to come into a bunch of these things. And you can probably find them at craft stores. I also found these same type at the dollar store, so they are available. And of course there's the 3D printing that you can do to make tops for them, like I did for that one. These are metal, so I wouldn't want to use them with the wiring, plus there's no place for the wire to go through anyway. But these are a really simple thing to put together. Anyway, I guess that's everything for today. Which one of these 4 do you think were the winner, or did you prefer some of the WS2812 stuff? Maybe if we put multiple strings in here and controlled them remotely? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Questions or comments down below. As always, I will talk to you later, and happy holiday lighting project season.